Well, thanks for your patience. I'm really excited that I get a chance to present here at this TED event, but what excites me the most is that I get to present to you here in this room. We call this space the Commons, and it's here in this room that I've made a lot of friends. I've made a lot of great memories here and spent time with people that I care about. And it's also in this room, sitting right about there in the middle of the room on a couch with a friend of mine who isn't here today. I'm going to talk to him later. I discovered an organization that would take me on an internship to the country of Ukraine. So I spent the greater part of last summer, about 12 weeks, in the capital city of Kyiv, working with young students, 8 to 10-year-olds, and also with high school-age students to get them to interact in English. Because I'm a native English speaker and I don't know Russian, I had to force them to talk in English so that they would want to go back to school and learn English better, because they couldn't talk very well in English to me. And so I think it's a brilliant idea. As I'm preparing for this trip, I'm going to be gone for 12 weeks, so I grab the biggest suitcase in the house and stuff it to the 50-pound airline limit. That's a bad idea when you have a suitcase that isn't built for that, because at least one handle broke off the first day that I got there, and then the roller bar handle, the important one, that broke off too. And so the first lesson I learned was how not to pack. But thankfully, I also had a chance to learn something quite a bit deeper. I came to terms with my idea of foreignness. While I was there, the whole city is foreign, the country is foreign, the food I ate, the people I talked to, the language I heard, everything was foreign, and yet I was the one who was out of place. I was the one who was the foreigner. And maybe it's an American thing, but I don't like being called foreigner. I'm American everywhere I go, and everyone else is foreign no matter where they go. And that's foolish, because I was the one who was really out of place. But foreign, that word that we use, has a negative connotation sometimes. Some of you might have thought or even said, "Professor or teacher, I don't want to work with those students. They're foreign exchange. They don't speak English that well. I don't want to jeopardize my grade by working in a group with them. I'd rather work on my own." Or, "I don't want to eat that food. It must be foreign. I don't know if my stomach can handle it. I might throw up or something. Who knows? It could be raw. I don't know. I don't know what they do there." Or, that guy over there smells really bad. He must be from some other country. He must be a foreigner. And I don't like that word anymore. Its use is now negative to me. And so what if we use a new word? What if we use the word unfamiliar? Because it takes the pressure off of that person that we don't know and back onto us. It calls us to a position of humility and asks us to be okay with not knowing everything about the world. We can now say, "I'm unfamiliar with that person's cooking, or with that person's language, or with that person's bathing habits. They must do something differently in the country that they're from." But I don't think many of the Ukrainians that I spoke with had that same kind of mentality. I had it fairly easy while I was there. Some people just thought I was Russian and would start talking to me at the market, and about all I know off of the plane is yes, no, and hello. And so I'm inadequately equipped to speak to these people. But some of the people that I worked with, some of the other interns, didn't have it so easy. I worked with one boy from China, another from Singapore, and one was from Kazakhstan, who speaks Russian, but he looked Asian. And so anytime we would walk around, he would point out the groups of teenagers or the groups of people who were looking at us and saying, "What are those Chinese doing here? They don't belong here. They're foreigners. They need to go back to China." For some of the Ukrainians that we encountered, their discomfort with foreignness, their dislike of otherness, manifested itself in the form of racism, of ethnocentrism. And I'd like to take those words and put them in another category: big-headedness. Big-headedness happens when we think we can fit the whole world into our head and not realize just how much we have to push out to try and fit that information in there, because our brains aren't big enough to contain all that information. So we shut out things that we don't like. We shut out things that make us uncomfortable, that makes our palms sweaty, that makes our stomach sick, that we don't like to smell or don't like to talk to, that we don't understand. And big-headed people don't realize that they're walking around inside of a box, because they close off this box and shut out anything else that they're not familiar with, that they don't like. But what if we looked out with a new perspective? Instead of big-headedness, we look out into the world with big-worldedness. This calls us to recognize just how small we are, that we can't possibly contain and organize all the information that's out there. It asks us to remove our sense of entitlement so that we have absolute freedom to go out into the world and learn about what's in it. Because there's a limitless variety of activities and conversations that can take place. And with big-worldedness, we now have the freedom to experience that and not worry about the box that we've shut ourselves in. If you want to get out of that box, you have to be the one to push. You can't wait for someone else from another country or another culture to come and unpack that box and pull you out of it. You have to be the one to push out. You must want to learn. You must want to pursue cross-cultural interactions. For that, we have to learn through output. We can't just learn through input. When I went to Ukraine, I was something of a tourist, but I also acted as an intern. I worked. I took orders from Ukrainian bosses, and I contributed to the education of Ukrainian students. I met a community need, and from that, I was the one who learned. Because learning, at its root, at its core, is a process of making what is unfamiliar to us into something familiar. For that, that means sometimes that we become uncomfortable. We're not always prepared for this. But the danger isn't the discomfort that we might face. The real danger happens when we decide that we've learned enough, that we can shut our box and push out anything that we don't like. But there are small ways to pursue cross-cultural interactions. There are small ways to learn about the world. You don't have to know everything. I didn't know the language. I knew 3 words getting off of the plane in Russian. And yet, that didn't hold me back from speaking to these children and interacting with them. I remember one boy, about this tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, 8-year-old Sasha. He's a Ukrainian boy. And all he really knew how to say was, "Chris, come to swim." And we would go swim because I worked with him at a summer camp. And he told the camp directors his favorite part of camp was coming to Chris and having me throw him into the water. That was his favorite part. And I didn't have to speak a whole lot to benefit his life and to enjoy the company of these people that I didn't know. So you don't have to worry about not knowing what to say or not knowing how to say it. You also don't even have to leave this country. Think about the city of Houston. Think about this international city that we live in with such a variety of things that can happen. Think about this room. I want you to take 3 seconds and look around you. It's okay, make eye contact. It is perfectly okay to make eye contact with people that you don't know. Look at the demographics represented here in this room, in the Commons. I love calling this space the Commons because it is a common area. It's a shared space where lots of activities can take place. There's friends of mine who are involved in theater, and they put on theater productions here. There's people who come and do Paya Prof fundraisers. It's a lot of fun. You get to come here and study, and students come here to hang out with their friends or sleep sometimes between class. Life happens here in this room, and I wonder what the rest of the world could look like if we chose to live like all of it was shared space, with room for an infinite variety of activities and conversations that we would spend the rest of our lives learning about. Before you leave today, I encourage you, talk to someone that you don't know. Big-worldedness begins by sharing space with people that you don't know. And you're doing that already. You're probably sitting near people that you don't know. But you take the next step, and I encourage you to start a conversation with them. Share words. Because sharing words, this interaction, this output, somehow is deeper than just input. We have the power to change the way that we look at the world, that we think about the world. And here, in this shared space, here in the Commons, we can go out and we can begin to change the way the rest of the world thinks, one conversation at a time. Thank you, and I look forward to talking with all of you.